Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Platform Podcast. Joined today by a very special guest and actually a teammate of mine, Mr. Cody Clark. How's it going?
Sir. Good, brother. Doing real good.
That's the story. So, I mean, you've had a pretty crazy kind of upbringing that's a bit different to most Kiwis, I guess, because we could still call you a Kiwi. So tell us a little bit about that, your life, your upbringing, and then where you've ended up, and now I guess you're back here 26 years later.
Yeah, bro. So I was born in Wellington, and then I moved about 8 years old over to Canada, and I lived in Vancouver Island from the age of 8 to like 18, and then I departed from there to the good old Arizona in the U.S. and started playing lacrosse there. Lived in Arizona for like 6-7 years-ish, and then I moved back to Canada recently, and that enabled me to make the trip down to New Zealand, and here I am.
Here you are.
Bro.
No, it's great. Great to have you here, honestly. I mean, New Zealand lacrosse needs a bit of firepower, and you've managed to bring that. So tell us a little bit about, your college story. So you went to Grand Canyon University, which play MCLA.
Yep, MCLA. That's the one.
So yeah, kind of tell us a bit about that, because, the most common kind of, I guess, things we get our athletes are NCAA, NAIA, and junior college.
Yep.
Kind of tell us about the MCLA and how does all that work?
Yeah, so the MCLA is club lacrosse, club university lacrosse, and so there's the MCLA Division II, MCLA Division I. I was fortunate enough to play in Division I in Phoenix, Arizona. So when I was in high school, I was kind of trying to figure out what my next step was going to be if I was going to go and play in the States. That was, of course, the goal. Everyone was kind of like, oh yeah, NCAA is the way to go. And then I was talking to a coach, and he was kind of like, yeah, like don't set your sights on strictly NCAA lacrosse. Like there's lots of other options out there. And then I went to a tournament in San Diego, the Adrenaline Challenge. And then that opened up my eyes to some other alternatives. So there's a few different schools on the West Coast in Arizona, California, that were interested. And so I got in touch with GCU, and they were kind of like, yeah, this is where we're at. This is Phoenix, Arizona. This is our campus. You come check it out. Explained the club lacrosse situation to me. And I was like, okay, heck yeah. Like, I'll come see what it's all about. And then I found myself in Phoenix, and it's just hot all the time. A little different to what I'm used to in Canada. And, it's just unreal down there. I like the environment. And although it's club lacrosse, the coaches we had really treated it like a Division I, like highest level lacrosse you could possibly be playing. And so every day in practice, it was like full on focused, a lot of discipline and high intensity training. And we did the usual like 5 practices a week, games on the weekend, of course. And then 3 days a week we were lifting. And so I felt like when I was playing lacrosse that I was at like the top tier NCAA Division I programs. Right. And it was highly competitive, and everyone was fighting for a spot on the team. And then the only difference in being club is like you don't get as significant of athletic scholarships and whatnot. Right. But it was enough to make it worthwhile for me. And I found that I really liked the environment. It wasn't, I would say, more relaxed, but it felt like I was kind of on vacation half the time. And then half the time I was, of course, doing my studies and getting after it on the field.
So how does, obviously MCLA Division I, how... You guys had quite a gun team from my research and from what you've told me. You guys had quite a gun team. You guys, won the national championship twice. Tell us a bit about that, because obviously, that's every athlete's goal, right? Is to win a championship. Yeah. And you've done that twice.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about that, and how that fared for you.
Yeah. So it was funny growing up in a small town on Vancouver Island. We never really had the numbers to put together a super competitive team. And so I kind of got used to just playing for the team and doing the best that we can without having super high expectations. And so we didn't win a lot of big championships or anything. And then I got to GCU, and I found myself surrounded by a lot of really good lacrosse players and really talented guys, a lot of Canadian boys, actually. I think our whole man-up line was Canadians. And so that was kind of funny to get in that environment. And, me and the boys, we seemed to put together a pretty good season. It was my freshman year at university. We had some really good players in Dean Farrell, Carson Barton, some pretty heavy hitters. And, it was a real change for me and a kind of a shift into a different direction. It's like, oh my goodness, we could actually win this thing. Like we have a solid squad, and our coaches were like, that was the number one goal, of course, when you get there. And so we're just out there practicing against one of the best defenses in the league. And throughout the year, you just get better and better and better, and you make each other better playing against the best that there is in the league. And so next thing you know, we're in the championship, and we ended up taking it by 1 goal against one of our own, Johnny Clayton.
Yeah, John Clayton.
CU.
Shout out John Clayton, another New Zealand lacrosse player.
Yeah, bro.
I guess then, you know, you can almost tie it back into, you know, because for me personally, right, I played a season in Division 2 over in Chestnut Hill, and you know, even for me coming from New Zealand, that was even still a whole nother ball game. You know, it's a completely different game, completely different style of play, completely different speed. Did you even find that from Canada? That because Canadians, you know, are pretty gun at lacrosse. You know, they're up there competing with the States every World Cup. So kind of, you know, how did you even? So you're telling me, you know, you even found disparity between Canada and the States.
Yeah, so the thing with Canadian players is we grow up playing box lacrosse, right? So it's indoor, a lot more fast paced, and your stick skills as a result get really good, and you're a lot quicker with your hands, especially in tight areas. And so when that translates into field lacrosse, it's like you got all if you're athletic, which most of us are, you just apply that athleticism and the stick skills that you've gained and bring that to field lacrosse, and it's a totally different story. And so you'll see some of the best field lacrosse players in the world are Canadians. Josh Byrne, for example, mind-blowing, the guy, right? So I think having played box lacrosse from a young age, as soon as I got to Canada and then transitioning into field lacrosse, it helped us a lot going into the States and starting to play in that environment with that sort of it's a different style, if you will, a little bit. And so
and then I guess you could even tie that into now you've come back to New Zealand and competing for the national team at the World Cup. How have you found the transition? You've almost gone backwards, right? Because it's well known, you know, New Zealand, we're not, you know, the top level lacrosse players, right? We're developing, we're growing. So how have you found the transition from going from obviously Canada to the States and now back to New Zealand, where the level's just, you know, that step below? How have you found adjusting to kind of playing with players that, you know, I guess aren't as good, and, you know, you have to really, you know, dart the ball to them to their stick, otherwise you know, they're not going to catch it. Like, how have you found that?
Well, it's more like the athleticism in New Zealand is top tier, like, and everyone grinds. It's like that New Zealand culture, like we work real hard, and it's awesome to see, and everyone is determined and is fighting for the same goal. And they've been, although they may not have been playing as long, they develop at a lot faster rate, it seems, from my perspective, because of that, like that just athletic mentality of like your traditional Kiwi sportsman. And so playing with the boys has been unreal. Like we all get along phenomenally, for starters, but then in terms of the actual like lacrosse itself, I think having played in the States and Canada for as long as I have, and then coming here, I think there's a lot of just coaching that I've received that I can now contribute to this team and some of the boys out here. So I feel like there's a lot that I might be able to help with in certain areas, and just simple stuff, right? Like fundamentals sometimes, like positioning and what to do in certain situations in a game.
100%.
And I mean, as far as the stick skills go, like that's something that can always be worked on. It's more a matter of like learning a system and being able to position yourself accordingly to maximize your opportunities, and when they come, to be able to take advantage of them.
100%. Yeah. I guess, you know, we'll bring it back to college now, you know, like every, you know, because most of our audience, they're looking to go into the college scene and looking to take kind of that, you know, that step into the collegiate system. Kind of what kind of, you know, challenges did you face personally when you were over there? Like, did you have any, you know, coaches telling you were trash, or, you know, or did you have, you know, any teammates there that you didn't get along with? Like, did you have any adversity that you had to kind of face at college?
I think the biggest thing that my coach, Manny Rapkin at GCU, and Jeff Guy really put on us was is like just perfection, like strive for perfection. No one's going to be perfect, but we're all striving for that. And that's the ideal goal that we're all trying to achieve. And so it was a lot of mental toughness, I found, is the biggest thing. Like, you can practice fundamentals for days, and sometimes we'd spend a whole practice just doing like passing and catching.
Yeah.
People at the start of practice clearly were a little bit rusty, or they just weren't into it, and so the coach was like, all right, we're gonna keep doing this until you guys get it. Until you stop dropping the ball. And so like it's the fundamentals that are super crucial, and then just mental toughness after that. Once you've been taught everything and given all the tools, it's like, okay, if you're gonna show up on game day and be ready to go and be fully locked in and perform when you really need to. And that's like I think the biggest challenge that everyone has, especially in university when you first get there as a young guy, like trying to prove yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like every day in practice is a battle for playing time, to get on the field, right, on game day.
So, so how long, obviously coming in as a young guy, a lot of our Kiwis, we get over there and, you know, we think we're going to, you know, get a lot of game time. How long was it? Because obviously you're even going over from Canada, which is, you know, a bit closer from New Zealand. You know, the sport over there is a bit more developed, all that kind of jazz. So, like, how long was it before you actually kind of cemented your role at GCU in the lacrosse team?
Yeah, so that's a tough one. I was fortunate enough that I was a good learner and a good listener, and I was real coachable.
Coachability.
Going into this new environment, and so the coaches recognized that. And it wasn't just I get on the field and I'm listening at all times. It's like, oh, you're teaching me something new that I haven't maybe done before. I got to be open-minded and make sure that I'm willing to adapt and learn these new strategies and methods for doing things and achieving things on the
100%.
field. And so being a good listener and actually being able to take what the coaches are saying and then translate it onto the field like right away is important. It's really crucial. And so I think that really helped me a lot, being able to do that. And it got me on the field in my freshman year as one of the top midfielders. And so very fortunate, but you got to be driven and you got to want it. Like if you don't get on the field, you got to be willing to go after hours and do the work and put in some extra effort to get onto the field when it comes to like those intense practices where everyone's looking for reps. Yeah. And so you kind of learn real quick in a competitive environment that you got to outwork the other guys around you. And if you can do that successfully, then you're going to get on the field, and it's simple as that.
Yeah. How important for you going to college? How important were your academics and, you know, the social life compared to lacrosse? Obviously, lacrosse is what took you there and is what got you there. Yeah. But, you know, we like to think, you know, the four pillars per se of college recruitment. You know, you've got your sport, you got your academics, you got your location, and then cost. You know, how kind of important were those four things, and what ones did you kind of value the most?
So like the academics especially, like you got to remember you're a student athlete, not an athlete student. And a lot of guys forget that. And I was never a real academic going into university or in high school at all. And then when I got there, I kind of looked at it as, if I perform in the classroom and I perform on the field, then I'm going to get to see the field on game day. And that's what everyone's dream, you know, going to university to play a sport, any sport, is I want to be there on game day and I want to get out there and get reps and contribute to this overall success of the team. And so I looked at my schooling as, if I don't try my hardest and get my grades up to a certain standard, then I'm not going to see the field, because it's equally, if not more important than being an athlete. And so that was one of the things our coaches reamed into us. They're like, man, you gotta perform in the classroom, and like no matter how good of a lacrosse player you are, you're not going to see the field if you aren't getting the grades. You're not going to make it through all 4 years of schooling, because it's not easy. It's university level classes, right? Yeah.
And then I guess, you know, so academics was up there for you. How about location? Like, how many schools did you kind of look at and talk to before you decided, I want to go to GCU, I want to live in the sun in Arizona and be warm 24/7? Because obviously, you know, you would have talked to more than one school, I'm guessing?
Yeah. So I talked to a few different schools, and I went to a couple of different visits. And what it kind of came down to is, obviously the cost is a huge factor. And you got to look at what you can afford and then go according to your budget. Simple as that. But when you're considering locations for different places, you got to think, where can I live for the next 4 years? Where can I be happy and enjoy my life for 4 years in a row and be away from home? It's like a huge commitment to make. So you want to make sure that you're going to be comfortable and happy in that environment. And so that's why you go and see the coaches, the campus, meet some of the team, and then consider like the level that you're going to be playing at and the difficulty of the schooling you're going to be doing, because some schools obviously are a bit harder than others. And then you commit once you've considered all those variables and put them all in front of you and say, okay, well, this school has this, and a good old compare and contrast always helps.
Did you when you went to college, did you use an agency kind of like Platform, or did you do it by yourself, or were there coaches helping you? Kind of, what process did you take coming from Canada, right? Like with obviously in New Zealand, we're a lot more limited with kind of our visits and I guess our exposure with college coaches. Yeah. So did you go through kind of a recruitment agency, or did you just how did you approach the?
So I didn't use any kind of agency really. I just worked with my coaches, and a lot of it was just on my own. I kind of took the liberty of like making sure this goal or this dream of mine happened. And so you got to be proactive for sure, and stay in touch and check your emails and do all the busy work. There's lots of paperwork involved, right? Yeah. And make sure things are progressing. And so it would have been great to have an agency helping me, especially being from a small town in Canada. Like I didn't go to a high school that had a high school team and a coach that was in touch with other university coaches.
That's funny. I actually I said the exact same thing when I was on a podcast when I first started with Platform with Umra, and I said that same thing. And the beauty of kind of the agency and having an organization like Platform is the options. You get a lot more options because we're throwing coaches at you 24/7. You're not having to sit there and go out and look for them. So I guess we can relate in that respect, because I also did it myself, and it's kind of it's tough, but like you said, it's all about the grind. You just got to grind and just hustle and kind of be that pest, because coaches get hundreds of emails daily. Tons. Of kids wanting to come to their school. So how do you stand out, I guess?
Dude, honestly, I spent hours and hours looking up email addresses for college coaches. Yeah. And every college coach I could think of at a school that I might be interested in going to, and I sent a mass email, a big write out about me and what I'm interested in, and a highlight video. Like, you got to put one of those together. And I just kind of hoped, like, okay, hopefully this gets me some looks. And it didn't actually end up getting me any looks. I ended up getting it from just being at a tournament. But that's another big thing, is exposure. And you got to make sure you're putting yourself in the position to get that exposure. I went and joined what was called Vancouver Island Sea Spray. And it was a travel team based on Vancouver Island. And we went down to San Diego, and that's where I got the look to go to GCU.
Yeah, we get to go to San Diego again soon with the World Cup. Bro. Yeah, there we go.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's exciting. But off topic. But no, 100%. Going back to kind of the academic side of things, a lot of our athletes are kind of concerned about, what am I going to study? What major am I going to do? Yeah. What kind of major did you study, and are you using that now after college?
That's a good question. So I did business administration, but going into school I had no idea. Yeah. And you can't expect a 17 or 18-year-old to know what they want to study and what they want the rest of their life to look like, right? And so and so what I kind of did is like, well, everyone seems to kind of get into business. Like, that's what my fellow teammates were doing, and that's a good resource too. You go to your like the guys you're going to be playing with and say, hey, what do you study? What do you recommend? And you can ask like a counselor what each course consists of. And I ended up going with business management. And then I switched after my first year to sports management. And then I switched to business administration. And it's okay to switch around, so you can mix it up.
That's what I found as well. American colleges, they actually make it quite easy to, you can be undecided on your major until like your third year.
Yeah, for real. Because you got to do prerequisites, right? You got to do your English and your math and your electives and whatnot. Yeah. So they kind of do that to get you going. And then as you go through those, you kind of figure out what you actually want to pursue. And so I started pursuing business, because my logic was, well, the whole world revolves around money. So I'm just going to get into business.
It's not bad logic, to be honest.
Yeah. And so I went with that. And it's funny, people ask me all the time, like, how have you applied your degree to what you're doing now? And personally, I've been all over the map. I worked in business insurance, and then I worked helping my old man with his framing company, framing houses, and then now I'm pursuing real estate. And so you kind of jump around until you find something that fits you.
100%.
But the main thing I learned in university, and this I think can benefit anyone in the world, is you find out how to find out information. You learn what works for you, how you learn things, and how you can translate information to a deliverable, to a teacher, which as you get older turns into a boss.
Yeah.
And so when you can compile information and find it efficiently and then deliver it, that's that's like so valuable.
University, right, teaches you how to learn.
Exactly.
Teaches you how to apply skills to everyday life.
Absolutely. And so, I'm not like much of a student, like I said. Like I was never really good at it. And when I was my first year in university, I didn't know what I wanted to. Like, I didn't know how to learn. I didn't really know because I didn't try that hard in high school, to be entirely honest. Yeah. And what I figured out pretty quickly is what the teachers wanted to see. And once you figure that out, then you figure out how you can get that information to them. Me, I'm a repetition person. So, like, if I'm learning math or something, I just do it over and over and over and over and over. And it takes me hours. But eventually it clicks, and then you can deliver. And I wasn't a straight A student, but I got A's and B's once I figured out what worked for me. And 100%. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. So now I guess, going back into that kind of college, right? Your first year you get there, it's unknown. You don't know anyone. You're from a different country. That's like a lot of our athletes are. They're coming from New Zealand. Completely other side of the world. Yeah. Kind of how did you adjust to the American lifestyle? Because it is even from Canada, it's completely different. I can imagine. Oh yeah. Like how do you adjust? How did you find adjusting to that? American, everything's extravagant, everything's crazy lifestyle.
It's a bit of a culture shock at first, and that's expected. But what you find is that it kind of makes you unique to your surroundings, and so people find you kind of interesting, especially if you're a Kiwi. Like I was Canadian, which isn't quite as far away, but
did you claim the Kiwi card?
I didn't pull it too frequently. Every now and then I might have, but no, it was just I was known as like the Canadian kid with the red hair. Yeah. And I mean, it works. You're kind of unique, and people find you fascinating, and you can kind of share that, like your experiences with people. And sometimes they joke with you about it. Like for me, they're like, "Oh yeah, you guys ride polar bears and stuff up there, of course." You're like, "Oh, definitely, absolutely, man."
Well, I mean, from my experience, man, it was like New Zealand. Like, where is that? The top of the morning, governor. Like think we're from England and stuff. So I guess you kind of it is like an icebreaker. It does make it easy to make friends.
Oh, absolutely. And people are real cool to you for the most part. I never had any issues.
So I guess when I was there, how I did it was like, I'm just gonna be a yes man. Like if someone wants me to go and do something, I'm just gonna go and do it. I'm not gonna tuck into my little shell and hide in my dorm room and when things get rough, if I'm homesick or any of that. I chose to just be social about it, and I'd go out and hang out with people and do all that. Is that kind of how you found dealing with being away from home?
Oh, for sure, man. Everything's new and glamorous, and you're like, wow, this is so crazy, this world that I'm living in now. It's so different to what I've grown up with. And what you'll find as an athlete, when you go and play for a team at a university, you meet the whole team right away. So you automatically have like a family of friends who invite you to parties and invite you to like random whatever outings, anything, and sports events and stuff. So you kind of have that core group right away, and that helps a ton, because then you don't really get as homesick or you don't feel lonely or secluded, because you automatically within a group of really cool people with similar interests.
And that's why we always look to, when we're doing our recruiting for our athletes, we always look at schools that kind of have that international presence, because it does make life a lot easier. I remember we sat down with one of my buddies, Cruz. He's a New Zealander as well. He's at University of South Dakota playing basketball. Nice. And he said the same thing. He's like, over those breaks, the Thanksgiving breaks and 4th of July and all that, when kids go home to their families, you kind of knit up with the rest of the, I assume you did it with the Canadians.
Absolutely.
You go do traveling, or you go spend time with them. So it is like building another little family.
Oh, for sure, dude. We so everyone would go home for Thanksgiving break, and then us Canadian boys, we'd all get together and go to KFC and get like a big old chicken and stuff, and we'd have our own little Thanksgiving dinner with just the group of us, and we had a good handful of fellas, and everyone was all Canadian, so we kind of had that in common, and it was a bit of fun. And then you meet people with like they don't live too far away from school, so you just go with them for a long weekend or something like that, and 100%. Spend the weekend with their family. Like it's not hard to make a bunch of new friends who are willing to invite you to spend time with them, and it's easy to find your way and fit into that new environment in that sense.
Did you play any other sports growing up, or were you just set on lacrosse?
So I played, when I was in New Zealand, I played rugby, and then I got to Canada, and it wasn't really rugby what I was really used to. Thing, it wasn't quite as competitive, and so I decided to look at doing something else. And I had family friends in Canada who played lacrosse, and I was like, I'll give that a shot. And then I just got into box lacrosse, and then started playing field lacrosse. And played a little bit of like volleyball or basketball, like high school stuff, but just kind of for fun with my friends. But lacrosse was definitely the main focus. It was always kind of like, okay, if this is what I want to pursue, I'm playing lacrosse year round. We got box lacrosse in the spring and summer, and then field lacrosse in the fall and the winter. And so it was a year-round thing for the past 18 years.
For sure. For sure. Well, another question I have, because I actually don't know the answer to this, and we had our trials at the start of January and the start of the new year. How did you find out about our trials? Because we didn't really express a lot of it to internationally, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to really keep our New Zealand lacrosse homegrown.
Yeah.
And obviously, we're not saying you're not homegrown. You were born here and raised here, but how did you figure out about that?
It was actually a pretty crazy story. So I was going to try, I found out about New Zealand lacrosse somehow back in like 2013 or 14. And I was like, oh yeah, this could be pretty sweet. And then I was getting interested and I reached out and I just wasn't going to be able to make it for trials. And so I was like, all right, maybe next time. And then I kind of had forgotten about it a bit. And then one of my friends from university, he plays for Chinese Taipei.
Right.
And I saw during the qualifiers
when we were in Korea.
Exactly, in Korea, he had posted that he was playing against New Zealand. And I was like, as a joke, I messaged him on Instagram and I was like, hey dude, if you see the coach, tell him that I want to play for New Zealand. And he was like, oh yeah, actually we're staying in the same hotel as him. I was like, get out. For real. And then the next thing you know, he sends me Ash's email address and he's like, yeah, I ran into him. He said, send him an email and you can maybe go to tryouts.
It's crazy. It's
yeah,
crazy. And then here you are and you've decided to make a little bit of a holiday out of it, I guess. You've been here for a while.
Well, this is the crazy thing, dude. Before that even happened, I'd booked a flight to New Zealand back in like February for December 1st of 22. And I was like already coming here. And then I talked to Ash and he was like, yeah, tryouts are in January. I was like, I'm going to be there anyways. Let's do it.
How good.
Let's go. So I had to change my travel plans a little bit, but I was going to be here regardless. So it was just kind of one of those things that was like meant to be. Meant to be.
Just fell into my lap. Now we get to go to San Diego.
Exactly,
and we get to
dude.
take it to the world stage. No, we're honestly super excited. I mean, it's my first World Cup and your first World Cup too. So, us rookies get to go and take it to internationals.
Exactly. Oh, it's going to be such a wicked experience. And the more people that can watch it on YouTube, the better, especially the Kiwi boys looking for some inspiration. And we got the U18s, which is pretty sweet. They kind of look up to us and try to make it into this level.
Well, I'm actually the head coach of the U18s.
There you go.
It's great. I mean, the boys are all racked up about it. And that's like what I guess is kind of the best way that we've found in regards to New Zealand lacrosse is the best way to get exposure is by going to these overseas trips. Like with I'm taking the under 18s to Perth in April. And all the games will be filmed, chucked up on YouTube. That's always been the hardest part is because film is one of the most important things when it comes to recruiting.
Huge.
Coaches aren't going to fly to New Zealand to come watch us play lacrosse. Like that's just not in their recruiting budget.
No.
So the only way that we can actually get film to them and kind of showcase our talent and our ability is through film.
Yeah.
And so I guess having these international trips where we get to go and compete against actual good competition as well, that's another thing. So you kind of, how did you go through, the film process? Did you have a sick highlight tape with?
Dude, not even. Like I tried to put one together, but I had my dad filming me, and he's watching the game as well as filming, and so like, he's not gonna get good footage, And it was a really like cheap, like not a very good camera, and so I had like a really
with other parents
tape
in the background
yelling and stuff. And so I put something together, but it wasn't that great. And so what it ended up being was getting that live exposure to coaches and putting myself out there in those situations. I don't think the tape did me any good. But it is important to get if you can, and especially if it's on the world stage against other people from various places at a really high competitive level. Then coaches are going to see that you're playing as well as you might be against another guy who's playing really well. It's going to make you look better in the long run. For sure. And those coaches are going to be there. They're going to be the ones watching that sort of stuff because they know that's the top level. So
I'm taking from this, you would highly recommend doing the travel teams and doing...
Absolutely. The importance of traveling. Yeah. We want to make sure that the kids are getting overseas to where the main coaches are going to be, and they're going to be looking for them. And if you stand out over there, you're going to be looking all right. And especially those events, when you go to them, you want to get footage as much as you can so that you got something to work with. If some coach you might be interested in attending school, you can put that clip together, send it over to him and say, hey, this is how I was doing last weekend. What do you think? Sorry you missed it, whatever, and so forth and whatever.
Yeah.
So you kind of just, you got to make sure you're staying in touch, reaching out, being proactive, and getting as much footage as you possibly can, and sending that away, because that's going to get you the best looks.
For sure. No, definitely. Yeah, I guess, another kind of key point when it comes to college is, and it's one of the more, I guess, kind of discrete things that people talk about is the social life of college, we touched on it before, but like, you're going to be there for 4 years, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be somewhere where you're not happy, where you're not getting along with people, or, you're at a school, and you just don't feel like you're fitting in. How important was the social aspect of going to GCU for you, and how did you find the social aspect of GCU?
Yeah. Oh, dude, it's really important that you're gonna fit into a certain social environment. Like I was lucky enough to meet a Canadian fella actually who was from really close to where I'm from, but we weren't really friends beforehand. That we were both freshmen coming in at the same time, lived in the same dorm, and we became real close. And so you got to make those core friends, and you just got to be open to it, like meeting new people. And if you're open to that, then you'll meet lots of cool folks from all over the place that share similar interests. And then you just stick around with them, and those friendships last a lifetime. And most importantly, the 4 years you're going to be there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I didn't even do 4 years, and I still talk to all my mates at Chestnut Hill like daily. Like shout out Brandon and Grubb, like those, I talk to them all the time. So I guess, the other thing that plays into that is, we like to talk about it as well with a lot of athletes, is, that first year, that freshman dorm year, freshman dorms can sometimes, get a bit of flack for being a bit gross, or all of that kind of jazz.
You just got to embrace it.
That's what I did as well when I was over there. Like a lot of kids will get there and kind of just be like, this isn't what I want, it's gross, the showers, why do I have to wear shoes in the shower? And it's just kind of, it's a part of the process, right?
Oh, for sure.
And then did you stay in the dorms? Obviously freshman year you have to, it's compulsory for most schools.
Yeah.
Did you get out straight away, or did you stay on campus?
So I was in the dorms my freshman year, and then I took a gap year between 15 and 16, or for the year of 16 for the most part. And I took a year off just because I'm kind of figuring out what I was going to do. I loved it. I enjoyed my freshman year, but then finances kind of come into play, and you're like, can I justify it? And then eventually I had some time to kind of relax and chill and not be on like full on. And I was like, I need to go back to school. I'm gonna make it happen, and saved up some money and went back for the 17, 18, 19 years. And when I got back, I was in the dorms for 2017. And then after that, I was like, okay, I'm ready to move off campus. And then so I got an apartment with another Canadian boy. And then senior year, we had a house, 5 of us, 4 Canadians, one fella, Kian from Washington, and we were all good. So the off-campus lifestyle was for sure a lot more freedom. You can kind of do what you will.
Also a lot
less
more
strict
responsibility, though. And a lot more responsibility.
You do have more responsibility. You got to feed yourself. You got to clean up after yourself, and you just maintain a household and a healthy lifestyle, and figure out transportation and all that. So there's some more factors that come into play when you do move off campus, but I highly recommend for the first year or two that everyone who's going lives on campus, and until you get a feel for it.
Especially, kind of being international. I mean, being international, it does save you a bit of money moving off campus. Obviously, you can save up to like $3 or $4 grand just by not living in the dorms. But kind of the security that I guess you get when you're staying in the dorms. Being on campus, there's campus police, all of that, because safety also is a big thing.
Oh,
right?
For sure.
You want to be somewhere where you feel safe, because America, it's a big place. There's a lot of people, and coming from a place like New Zealand or Canada, which are world renowned for being some of the safest places in the world with the nicest people, and that's something that it's hard to come by in some places in America.
Very much so, dude. West Phoenix, where GCU is real sketchy. Yeah. And so the campus is really safe. It's completely fenced off, and they have 24-hour security. So it's a really safe place to be. And I was thinking this as you were saying, like the social life aspect of things. When you're first getting there, you want that safety, security, and social life. You're going to meet a lot more people if you're on campus 24/7 than if you're off campus. And so that's why those first 2 years are so important, that you're socializing, meeting a bunch of new people every day. And then later on, it's like, okay, I'm feeling more secure in my surroundings. I have a good group of friends. Now I can move off campus, save some money, have a little more freedom. And it's great, but you just got to be ready for that. And it's important not to rush into it. I find there's a really good chance, like after your first year, you're like, I'm good. I'm going to move off campus. And then it's like, oh my goodness, this is terrifying. Like we had a couple of run-ins with some sketchy folks over the years. And you just got to go in expecting that, because it is, like you say, a big country, lots of people. Not everyone's going to be great and friendly. And so you just got to be careful and make sure you're not stepping on anyone's toes or rubbing people the wrong way by accident, because we're kind of naive to like the actual dangers of the real world.
Yeah, and that's a lot of concern that we kind of have with parents that are, you know, sending their kids overseas. I know my parents, when I left, they were super worried about it, you know, because I'm very, you know, I'm a social guy. I'll go up and talk to anyone, but you know, some people might not want me to come up to them and talk to them.
Yeah, definitely.
So, you know, I guess that's the beauty of being in that university environment is, you know, you are secure, you are, you know, surrounded by your peers and all of that. But I mean, you know, I guess, you know, to kind of, you know, wrap this up, like what advice would you give to, you know, young lacrosse players, or I guess any athletes that are looking to kind of take this next step into collegiate sport?
Well, I would say if it's something you truly want to do, work tirelessly to make sure it happens. And then when you get that opportunity, to take advantage of it and like go. Don't get cold feet and bail. Like you could always come back after a year if it's not for you. Yeah. You're never going to get the chance again. And so you want to go and embrace that and get outside of your comfort zone, like get comfortable being uncomfortable, and the world will open up for you, right? And so if you just go and experience that, you might love it. And you have 4 amazing years of college, athletics, and great friendships in a different part of the world. Like what better way to travel to, right?
100%.
Like the amount of places I got to see is just incredible, just by going. And so regardless of how you might get like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for this. Oh goodness, I feel a little bit young, whatever it is, just go for it. And you'll never regret it. I can't say I know anyone that's like, oh, I wish I didn't do that. You know? And
advice for, you know, athletes selecting their school, selecting where they want to go to. I remember we were talking in the car when I picked you up from the airport. Yeah. We were talking about, and you mentioned, you know, being somewhere where you feel, you know, this is for you, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely, dude. So you got to consider the variables, right? Like you could go to you get an offer to a sick Division I school, and it's like where everyone wants to go, but then you realize it's not in a very nice climate, and you're going to be freezing cold a lot of the time, and it might not be a very big campus, and there's not a lot of social life. Well, you're not going to be happy there. It's gonna be kind of miserable a lot of the time. Then if you have an alternative like GCU, where it's like you're at vacation, like at a summer camp all the time, you know, it's hot.
Jandals and singlets every day.
Exactly. Pools everywhere on campus. Like it's just it's somewhere that you can thrive and enjoy your life. And it feels like a bit of a holiday, but it's a working holiday. Yeah. That's like, for me, that was what I wanted. That was exactly what I was looking for, and it appealed to me. And so I went and I loved it, and I wouldn't change it for the world. So just deciding what climate you want to live in is really important, and what, like, how big of a school you want to go to is really important. Are you super social? Are you a bit of an introvert? What's it going to be? You got to decide and factor that in. And also, real importantly, how do you study? How do you study well? You get distracted easily, or are you good in like a busy place to be able to still get your studies done?
Yeah, I guess. Do you want to have a small classroom where you're getting one-on-one with the lecturer or the tutor, or are you happy in that 200 lecture hall kind of environment? 100%.
Yeah, and so you want to really consider that, because that's a huge part of it. If you're not connecting with the people around you, and especially your teachers, then you're not going to succeed really, or you're going to have a hard time succeeding. And so you got to find what's going to work, and then if it doesn't work, you can always transfer. Like if you go somewhere for a year and you're like, I don't know how I feel about this, but you still want to follow that dream and pursue that goal of getting your degree and playing 4 years of sports.
I guess transferring is something that we haven't really touched on, but it's actually, that Kiwi mentality is, you kind of you get to something, you stick to something, and I've talked to parents that have said that same thing when I mention the option of transferring. But it is a great tool that they've implemented into this kind of college structure where you can decide, I'm not happy here, I'm going to go somewhere else. So you know.
It's really important to consider that option. Like if you aren't committed to a school that you think is best for you, or you really, really want to go to, but you're going to go there because it's a door
good offer.
And a good offer, and it's just a gateway to get in and start your studies, then you can, if you want to move later on, you can always transfer. It might be a bit challenging at times because your transferring credits can be a bit of a challenge, but it's possible. I know guys that have done it, and they're so happy that they did. They found they were in a better environment for them that suited their needs, and they were much more successful in that place. And so to maintain an open mind and like, okay, I might not see myself there for 4 years, but I'm still going, and I'm going to get lots of reps, lots of exposure, become a better athlete and a better student, and then maybe transfer. Then that's totally okay as well. And 100%. People should understand that's fine.
100%.
It's cool.
All right. Well, we could sit here and chinwag all day, but we better get wrapped up. I've got work to do. So it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and I'm sure that people are going to take a bunch of insight away from this.
Oh, I hope so.
You know, just a different perspective. You know, it's all fine and well, New Zealand athletes talking about stuff, but a New Zealand athlete who lives in Canada, it's a different perspective. So, I mean, you know, if there is anyone out there looking to kind of take this college route, feel free to hit us up on Instagram, or, you know, our director, Amrit, he's always there. He's always going to do consultations, or, you know, even Cody, you know.
I'm happy to help.
Feel
happy to help anytime.
Yeah, any lacrosse players out there that want to just touch base with Cody, he's a nice bloke. He's not gonna, you know, poke at you or anything. So, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Yeah,
and
thank you,
I will see you. We'll see you next week.
Catch us in San Diego.
Catch us in San Diego.